Y'all, it's enough slices with this rain situation. I am done. It's enough slices. No more rain, please. Can it go away? Because it's too much. It's too much rain. It's enough slices. No more rain. We can't have it. We weren't built for this here. Good morning, everybody. It's such a mood buster, and it's just, I don't like it. I don't like it. Not into it. I don't want to see it. It's so, there's so much water everywhere. Is that paint or vinyl on your refrigerator? It's a contact paper. Oh, well, I hope you get the place that you're looking for your family. I will definitely send good vibes in your direction. No probs by that. Hey, Shelly, what's up, darling? Too much rain. What's the weather where everyone else is? I actually prefer snow over rain as well. Still have to sleep. What are we talking about not liking? Rain. We're talking about not liking rain. It's too much rain. I would take snow over rain. Probably. Having lived for 15 years on the East Coast where we get all the seasons, I can say definitively that I would rather have rain than, I would rather have snow than rain, because you can just brush off snow. Rain soaks into your clothes immediately. Sunshine in Texas, but chilly for us. We have rain in the forecast for Thursday. It was blightingly cold last night. It was cold here too. It was cold. I don't understand. Why are they doing this to us? Why has it got to be so rainy? Oh, is there something we aren't built for this? We are not built for this. No. No, no, no. You smell so good. It smells delicious. How was everyone's night? How is everybody? Everybody good? Everyone feeling fine? I don't know what I just clicked. It's 43 but sunny here. We've reached almost 100 inches this year. That sounds not great. That sounds not like something I'd be interested in. I don't want it. I don't like it. I don't want it. It's not good. Still sick? Yikes. Sorry to hear that. I'm sorry you're still sick. Cold snap is so ready for warm camping weather. I'm ready to be warm. I'm ready to sit in the sun. I'm ready for sunshine. Yes. See what Jody said? Good morning, sunshine. I'm ready for sunshine. I don't know why I live in Minnesota. I'm tired and I hate my job. Are you looking for a new one, or you just needed to complain? And that was not me being sarcastic. You're welcome to complain. I welcome you to complain to me, but I was legitimately asking, are you looking for a new one, or you just need to vent a little? Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. Yeah. What up, boys? The economy is garbage, but this poor wasn't. When this restock is over, I need to freaking deep clean my house. You know? I just need... Is that day 6 of a perfect pour? It is day 6 of a perfect pour. Welcome to day 6 of perfect pours. How long do you think we could keep this going? No one knows. No one knows. Hopefully longer than the rain. That's all I'm going to say, because the rain and I are not buddy. We've had a mild winter. Normally we get around 120 inches. Ugh. Ugh, ugh, ugh. Do not want. I do not want any inches of rain. All right, putting y'all on the tripod. In a moment. Starting your second cup of coffee. I don't blame you. I am getting myself under this blanket, which I heated up slightly before coming downstairs, because there's not, the plug isn't down here, but I can tuck myself into the slightly warmed blanket. Your brother lives in New York? Yeah, no, I figured you meant inches of snow. Look at that, you guys. Can you see out there? It's outrageous. So power went out again yesterday morning, still waiting on a crew to help us. Transformer blew. Oh my gosh. That's just terrible. I'm so sorry. I don't understand why that's all happening. Well, I do know, I mean, I understand why, but I hate that it's happening to you. I'm really sorry. Like, I get why logistically, but I still don't like it. Max had 2-hour delay. Now getting him to school is even harder, if not impossible. Oof. I don't know why they do that. Just cancel the whole day at that point. Do you guys not have enough, like, extra day? Oh, that feels so good. That's so warm on my hands. Oh, that's nice. Yep. 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 Yeah. At that point, just cancel it. Okay, I think my chair got moved to a weird position because I'm not close enough to my, like, little stand thing where all my drinks live. Dude, they don't even need actual snow days anymore because they can just do them. Oh, yeah. Well, not at their, I mean, they can, but, like, what's the point at their age? Oh, no. I forgot to fill up my water. It's so sad for kids now for a lot of reasons. I agree. I hear the power went out in New York. My sister sat in the dark for 1 hour. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. 1 hour's not so bad, though. Like, it's been a lot worse than an hour before in New York. I'm all, like, cuddled into my blanket, and then I just realized I don't have water. There's a pain in the butt. We are doing slime and crime tonight, yes. We're going on an adventure to the Cairo this morning while you read, and then doctor, and then not sure. Oh my. His school still does snow days for now. Weird, we're in New York. Things are chilly in the city. Yeah, slime and crime is tonight at 6:30 my time, 9:30 Eastern time. Ellen requested it be 9:30, which I was like, that's fine. It's been days for us where... Yeah. Yeah, an hour is not so bad. Days is when it gets, like, if the power goes out for an hour, you're annoyed, right? You're like, this sucks. I'm annoyed by this. But if it's out for days, you're like, okay, wait, this is detrimental. You know? Your phone will even still last for the hour. Do you have a timeline for merch? Hopefully Thursday. Hopefully the merch will be up on the website on Thursday. Unless, do you mean how long it will take to deliver to you all? Or do you mean when will it be available to order? 2 days home with nothing else is migraine. It's made me so sick. Ugh, that's not good. Just an idea, but can you take a normal slime and put some fluffy slime on top and let it iceberg? I'm sure you could. I don't think it would be any different because it's the part that touches the air that matters. Moana's off to school. She says, make it stop, Mom. We're just inside. I agree. Make it stop. Kinda, I wouldn't mind an hour without power. Like, yeah, exactly. I meant for it to be on the site. Then Thursday. I worked on them really hard last night while you were sleeping, Becca, and I got everything up on the site. However, because they are print on demand, the shirts will probably take a week longer than the slime to get to everybody, is what I'm understanding. They ship in 5 to 8 business days, I believe is what they said. I think the mugs are faster. So they will be available for purchase on Thursday, but does it mean you didn't sleep? I mean, I was definitely up late, if that's what you're asking. I did sleep a little, but morning came real quick. But I got a lot done. The stickers and the keychains, however, will ship from me, and those will ship with the slime orders. I just woke up, but I have e-learning. Ugh, I do not envy that. Made coffee and left it in the kitchen. Time to go get it, because that's important. I wouldn't want to get up either, but for coffee, I'd do it. Which is making me think I should do it for water. I should get water. Like, it's important. Let me get, I wasn't going to do it. I was just going to sit here and suffer, but I took a Unisom last night and finally had a good night's sleep. Nice. I'm going to get water. Give me 1 second. I didn't want to get up, but I did it. I did do it. It's necessary. All right, I'm repositioning myself. I hate having to get resituated, but it was worth it. I had to get the water. You love my chair, thank you so much. According to my watch, I can double deep sleep. Huh, I just woke up getting ready to go to the trampoline park. That's awesome. We want to take Zoe to one of the trampoline parks around here. I love trampoline parks. It's a really good workout, actually. As long as the power's on for the restock. Ooh, hold on, what does that say? As long as it all can be forgiven. I've been looking forward to my first slam. Oh my gosh, Missy, I will stay in touch. Stay in touch with me via email if you can, so that we can make sure that you're okay at the time of the restock, because I don't need anyone to get punished for their power being out. You know what I mean? So stay in touch tomorrow during the day if you have email abilities, like from your phone or whatever. Oh, thank you so much, Sandra. Okay, so let's hop right into it. And chapter 17, do your slimes run out fast? Yeah, they generally do. I can't wait for the restock. It will be my first slime purchase. Oh my gosh, I'm so, so kind of mermish. Wait, what does that mean? I love how the avalanches turned out. Me too. I also love how the avalanches turned out. And just for, I'm this is not a slime live, and I'm not going to totally the chair looks magical like a mermaid chair. I see what you did there. So kind of mermish. Yeah, you get it. You got me. You understand me. Thank you. Heart. Thank you for understanding me. I'm in the mood to deep clean, but my toddler's otherwise. My house needs a deep clean. If you're interested, you can do it here. What I was going to say was I actually did end up finishing Yzma, and I did end up finishing Herc was on a roll. So we're in pretty good shape character-wise. No, Becca, I asked first, so she's going to clean my house, and I'm going to give her slime. I know she wants slime, so she can deep clean. So the really sad thing I'm going to tell you all about Herc was on a roll is Herc was on a roll, although it is a fantastic feeling and smelling and whatever slime, it does not come with the extra that I was hoping it was going to come with, because my wholesaler went out of town and did not get back to me in time. I'll just fly to both places, no biggie. Perfect. That sounds great. Mine will be fast. I just need, like, okay, so this is my house right now. Like, hold on. Ugh, sorry. Like, it's clean, like, it's neat and tidy. You can see, like, there's not, like, stuff out of place or anything. But, like, I was looking at my sink before the live, and I was like, ugh, this sink needs to be deep cleaned. You know what I mean? So it's that kind of stuff. So you don't have to, like, put anything away. I just need someone to scrub the sink. I hate doing that. I promised my nephew slimes that it would be the best. You maybe thank you. No problem. You can leave him here while you go to Sasha's. He is real cute. So Herc was on a roll. I really, 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 really wanted it to come with a baguette squishy. That was the dream. But she went out of town, and she was like, I'll be back next week and can give you prices. And it's too late. So they won't get here in time. I prefer deep cleaning over tidying cleaning despite finding home for. I like the organizing part. That's the part I'm good at. I don't want to do dirty things. I'm not good at that part. Yeah, like I don't want to clean out things, but I will put everything away in these nice, neat places. I should love cleaning other people's houses, mine not so much. It's fair. It's totally fair. All right, let's read before it's too late. Man, that is so much rain. It feels like the rain is never gonna stop. Who's seen Seven Brides for Seven Brothers? You know what I mean? There's an entire song about this feeling, actually. It's right before spring, and they're talking about the different months, and they're talking about how it feels when you're stuck inside. And she literally is like, what is the part of the song where she says it? They're talking about it, and February finds a drift and a storm that seems never to lift. But then she says, March comes in like a lion, what else? Still the snow never melts. April showers will come, so they say, but they don't, and it's May. Yeah. March Went Out Like a Lion is a different show. That's a line from Carousel. March Comes In Like a Lion is Seven Brides for Seven Brothers. Don't check me on my classical musical lyrics, girl. You know I know this stuff. You know I know. It's a different show. But that is what she says when they are stuck inside month after month. Oh, it was another reference. Oh, yeah, it is another reference, and it's totally true. Yes, I thought about that. I made a video about that. April cried and stepped aside. And then comes Pretty Little May. But I actually made a video about that a while ago, how, like, classic musicals really, really want to talk about March being a lion and, like, the weather in spring and how terrible it is. It is a great and terrible show. I have a hard time calling it terrible, to be honest, because I don't feel like we can judge the subject matter of something from another time. Am I saying that it should still be put on and promoting what's going on in it? No, but nobody thought it was terrible at the time. You know what I mean? It wasn't like it was made now and people were like, whoa, what the heck are you guys doing? You know, it was a different mindset, you know? And not a good one, but it is true. And at the very bare minimum, in the film version of it, at least, it is curbed a little. Like, they did do some of that editing. However, all of this being said, and then we will get into the book, I do have to say, if you are going to have a flawed character like Billy Bigelow, I don't think we can totally take out realistic flaws from characters completely. You know what I mean? Is the fact that he is an abusive husband frowned upon? No, I would do it. Drag this kid to school in pajamas. I went to school in pajamas. It happens. He is abusive to his wife. There's no question about that. However, people do that. Well, Julie's got other problems, yeah. But she's also they are very real characters. Like, you can't tell me that you don't know someone like all of the characters in Carousel, which makes me kind of go, they're still very real archetypes, you know? Julie's a very real person, and they all are across the board, from what's his name, who's Billy's friend who drags him down into the mud, to all of them, you know? And so, despite the fact that the ideals are out of date, the characters really aren't that far-fetched even now. You probably could set Carousel... Carrie Pipperidge is life, but she's just as real and has her own issues. But I would be willing to argue, write a paper on the fact that you could set Carousel in a different place and time, and it would still hold true. Like, you could set it now, and it, you know, you wouldn't have to change the themes, and you wouldn't have to change the characters, just a little of the language. It is almost Waitress, except I find Waitress to be far more problematic, actually, because Waitress is a current day thing, and it basically glorifies cheating and is like, hey, get to join for 15 minutes before my next class. Hey, how are you, Liz? So I think Waitress is wildly problematic. Everybody loves Waitress, and I'm the outlier over here going, so because your husband's not good, it's okay to cheat? Why wouldn't you just leave him first?
Like, if you want to leave your husband, I'm obviously all in support of that. I'm divorced. I left my husband, but I didn't cheat on him before leaving him. You know what I mean? I never got together with anybody else until after I was out of that marriage for over a year. You know what I mean? Oh, Sarah Bareilles is amazing, and the music is phenomenal. I'm not saying that the music of Waitress isn't phenomenal. I love singing Waitress. I love listening to Waitress. I love Sarah. But I think that the characters, divorce is a thing. Use it. Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like, I actually think the fact that that was written modern day is actually more a little concerning than us looking at a show from 100 years ago and saying, yeah, there are problematic themes in this, but there are also some really good lessons to be learned, so let's look at it through a historic lens. But this one, you can't even look at through a historic lens. It's 4 years old, 5 years old. You know what I mean? I also feel like the drive of Waitress is somewhat honoring. Yeah, and that's fine. And I have no problem honoring her, but I just, it's one of those things that I look at and I'm like, is that something we really wanted to do in 2018? We're going to tell people in 2018 that cheating's cool, like right out the gate. I think cheating has become almost acceptable now. It's crazy what people think these days. Maybe, I don't know. I have pretty strong feelings on the matter, so I don't know. These are Broadway shows, yeah. We could have this conversation for days, just morphing from show to show. You're right. We could literally go forever. So I'll stop so that we can read the book, because some people only have a short time. But it is true. There's a lot to discuss. There's a lot to discuss. And I think I also have a different lens that I look at it through, because I did go to school for dramaturgy. So I always see the historical lens of things as far as shows like Carousel go. I cannot look at Carousel as a 2023. Like, I can look at Carousel from a 2023 perspective, but I can't judge it from a 2023 perspective. I can appreciate it for what it is, and I can also see where the problems are. Missy, at the very bare minimum, Carousel has been made into a movie, filmed live, a million other things. And honestly, you all know me, I am not a proponent of movies, but the early MGM musical versions of the Rodgers and Hammerstein films are actually top tier. So if you do not have the ability to get to a live stage performance, I would absolutely 110% advocate for watching the what is his name? Gordon McRae versions of these films. He was like the guy of the time that like did all of these. He was in Carousel and in Oklahoma, and he's phenomenal. His voice is wildly amazing. And if you're going to have to see you haven't seen them, oh my gosh, I can't recommend them enough. I am a stage person. Y'all know this. But when I tell you, these movies are sharp and they are super well done, and they do remove some of that problematic nature. So there are still problematic themes in Carousel, but for example, I grew up on watching those movies because of the type of mom that I have, and I did not see Carousel live until I was an adult. I only knew the film version. So when everyone was talking about how problematic Carousel was, I was like, what? And I was a little confused because it's not as in your face, right? In the film version. And the same thing with Oklahoma. There's a lot of stuff in Oklahoma that is not outright obvious, especially to a kid, when you're watching the film version versus, hey Kelly, good morning, versus watching the stage version. I was in OS 12 and I totally couldn't see the problematic stuff. Yeah, but like, okay, so I'm not going to say the spoiler because I don't want to ruin it for Missy, who's about to watch it maybe today. Maybe you'll watch it on Netflix or something, I'm not sure. But like, Billy Bigelow, while problematic, they're not as forthright about the problems with him in the movie. And like, the issues with Judd in Oklahoma are not as in your face in the movie. If that makes sense. I don't know. Yeah, the producers, I know so many people who love the producers, and the producers is like I'm going to say something really embarrassing, and y'all can do with this information what you want. The Producers is the only Broadway musical I have ever fallen asleep in. Like, straight out. Just passed out. Was so bored. Couldn't take it. Couldn't do it. Not a fan. Don't listen to the cast recording. Hey, Lainey, oh my gosh, is your baby with you? Tell her I said belated happy birthday. I didn't see The Visit, but I'm not a fan of The Producers. I don't think it's interesting. I don't think that the cast recording is fun. I don't care to listen to it. I don't know I've never seen the movie, so I can't speak to the movie, but that is not my kind of humor, and I just can't. However, it does provide a very useful lens when talking about the industry to non-theater people. It may be Dark Days movie, watch Netflix behaves. Yeah, do it. You're so welcome, Olivia. I love you so much. You almost left The Visit intermission. I didn't see The Visit, but I do have the playbills. Okay. Anyway, let's read. We have done enough Broadway babble. Broadway babble. All right, bye, Shelly. See you later. Sorry about wasting so much time on this and not reading the book right out, but, podcast name. Yeah. Well, tell Ellen, right? Tell Ellen to babble about Broadway with me. I would need a partner. I'm not going to do a podcast by myself. There's never enough Broadway babble. New podcast. Listen, y'all tell Ellen to get me a deal with a podcast producer, and I'll babble with her all day about podcasts. Ellen and I could fight about Godspell and Legally Blonde all day. Do you have a list of the books that we have read? I don't, but I could make one. I absolutely could make one. However, Kelly, we are uploading these lives to YouTube in the aftermath these days, so they'll be kept there. Good morning, Lauren. I love this group. It really feels like family. It does. It's a very sweet feeling, actually. We're pretty chill and a lot of overlapping interests. Okay. So I would like to hear you debate Godspell. Her hatred runs deep. Legally Blonde is fantastic, and her hatred does run deep, but I worked on Godspell, and guys, we really need to read the book, but I'm going to tell you, you just want to be able to look them up. I totally understand. I don't have the list, but I definitely can make one. I love Godspell. Controversy. How do I say this without getting in trouble? I am not religious, and I think you all know that. I'm not a religious individual, but Godspell could almost get me there. You know what I mean? It's okay. You don't have to be a theater person. Nobody's judging anybody for being into one thing or another. But Godspell, I remember, right. See, that's the thing. Like, I'm not religious, but I sat in those pits at Godspell, and I was watching it, and I was like, man, if there was going to be a piece of music that pulls you that way, could be this one. Like, I remember just bawling my eyes out. I'm going to New York and I get to see Wicked. Wait, why are you going to see Wicked if you're not a theater person? Just because it's like a thing to do in New York? It's a great show. And I guess it is a good one if you're not a theater person. Theater is my religion. I guess I have to see Godspell now. Theater, yeah. Well, okay. Let me say something on Ellen's behalf. Godspell is done excessively regionally and in community theater, and it's not always done well. But I worked on the most recent Broadway revival, and you're going with the school's jazz band. That makes perfect sense. I fully believe that the version that I worked on Broadway was well put together with a phenomenal cast. Yeah, Wicked is great. So that's different, I think, than seeing a community production of kids in clown costumes, because we didn't have as much of that clown around nature that the regional productions tend to have. And as a result, I think it was more impactful, you know? Ellen might disagree. Maybe we'll talk about it tonight on Slime and Crime. I think I met Ellen right around the time that I worked on Godspell, now that I think of it. Is that when we met? I think that's when she and I met. I also think the movie is a good version. I've never seen the movie. You know what I'd like to see on Broadway? Lion King. Oh, Lion King on Broadway is... otherworldly. It's I don't even have any words for how good it is. Lion King on Broadway is one of those shows that it's so good. If you're seeing Lion King on Broadway for the first time, spend the extra money and get an aisle seat in the mid-orchestra. Get an aisle seat in the mid-orchestra. It's a little bit more expensive, but it's worth it. I highly recommend it. Definitely worth spending the money. And if you are bringing a child or someone who does not go to theater often, put them in that aisle seat. And instead of watching the opening number, watch them. This live has become talk about theater movies. I know, we need to read, but I just wanted to say that. It's one of the most magical experiences in life. You know, it's pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing. Okay, let's read. Chapter 17. On the journey back to England, Lena thought about what she would say to Alexander when she saw him. She wondered what he would think of the new dress that she'd purchased from the Turkish seamstress on Plantanos. She fingered the yellow hem and fiddled with her hair. It had been nearly 2 months since they'd spoken, and Lena hoped that he'd forgiven her for the way that she'd acted when he told her about his promotion. When they disembarked at Victoria Station, she scanned the crowd hopefully, but Chadwick had come to receive them. He ushered them into a waiting car, and she settled in for the long ride to Epsom. When she finally saw Alexander, her fear was replaced by shock. He'd sprouted at least 3 inches. He greeted her with an awkward hug, taking care to keep an inch of space between them. "You cut your hair," she said. Alexander sheepishly ran a hand through his much shorter locks. Lena's eyes took in the stubble on his face before scanning the rest of his body. She was too embarrassed to notice his new muscles and defined arms and broad shoulders. She'd never thought to look for these things before. Her face turned red, and she thought about him hugging her tightly and pretended to have something stuck in her eye so she could turn away. "So did you," he replied, and Lena touched her hair as if this was news to her too. She stared at him stunned. His voice had gotten lower. He no longer sounded or looked like a boy. "Yeah," Lena paused, her voice caught in her throat. All those hot summer nights she spent holed up in her room in Thessaloniki, wishing she could talk to him, and now she had absolutely nothing to say. I should unpack," she said, relieved when he didn't try to stop her. "See you later." Except she didn't. Between studying and her physiotherapy sessions, it was easy to avoid Alexander. She missed him, but she was more terrified of standing there staring at him with nothing to say. A week before they were due to start the new tour, Lena spotted Alexander in the dining hall. He was hunched awkwardly over his plate, his elbows splayed widely on the table as he reached for his food. Suddenly he looked up. His face lit up and he waved his arm, signaling for her to join him. Lena scolded herself for getting caught looking at him and thought about pretending that she hadn't seen him. She hadn't brushed her hair before coming to dinner and was wearing an old cotton dress, but this was Alexander, her best friend. She swallowed her pride and went over to him. "Lena," he sounded happy. "Where have you been?" he asked as she took a seat across from him. "Studying," she answered, stirring chunky flakes of Parmesan through her risotto. Alexander nodded, shoveling a spoonful of spaghetti into his mouth. "I figured. It's a big exam." Lena concentrated on a swirling pattern in her bowl, her nerves mounting. The two sat in complete silence while they ate. Grasping for a topic of conversation, Lena surveyed the spread of food on Alexander's tray. In addition to spaghetti, he'd grabbed 2 slices of olive focaccia, a bowl of the same risotto that Lena was eating, a chicken breast, and a giant plate of spinach doused in olive oil. "Are you going to eat all of that?" she asked, incredulous. "I'm hungry," he protested. Lena laughed. For a minute, it felt like they were back to their old normal selves. She bit into her risotto, savoring the creamy flavor, and then frowned. How Horace managed to keep buying luxury food items when everyone else around them was rationing was beyond her. She knew he had connections, but she also knew that they were selling fewer tickets than before. A slight shiver ran through her as she thought about what backhanded things Horace might be doing to keep the illusion of grandeur that he created. "Your walking's gotten better," Alexander commented. "Yeah," Lena said. "Dr. Wilson says I might be able to use just a cane one day," she said, gesturing to the braces. "Can you believe it?" Alexander beamed. "I believe I was the first," he added, winking. Well, anyway, I hope you're not going to be so busy that you can't come to opening night." It was more of a statement than a question, and yet Lena didn't want to seem too keen. "I'll come if I'm free." Alexander straightened up. "You have plans?" "Might be playing cards with Clara," she lied, eating a mouthful of risotto. She had no intention of playing cards. It was tradition for her to watch from backstage. "Oh." Alexander stabbed at a piece of spinach with his fork. "Is this seat taken?" Lena turned and came face to face with Pari, the girl Horace had found in the orphanage in Persia. Now a woman of 18, Pari had morphed from a tiny child with aquamarine eyes into a beautiful dancer and contortionist. She stood before Lena, her white teeth sparkling. "Well, of course not." Alexander beamed at Pari, and she set her tray down next to them. "Lena Jean, how are you?" Pari asked. That means dear in Persian, actually. It means like Lena dear in Farsi. "Fine," Lena answered, wishing that Alexander hadn't invited her to sit with them. They'd only just begun to get back into a familiar groove. "You must be coming to see the show next week. Alexander and I have been working so hard on the levitation illusion." There was a slight exotic lilt to Pari's speech. The way that she addressed Lena made her feel like a child. I'm not sure I have time," she murmured. Her gaze fell on Alexander, who looked disappointed. "Please? It won't be the same without you." Lena's heart softened. After everything that had happened between him, he was still her close friend. Oh, sorry, that was Alexander speaking. "Please, it won't be the same without you." "All right, then. I'll be there," she promised. The following week, Lena waited backstage, thumbing through the program she'd swiped from Chadwick's pile when he wasn't guarding it. The show, she read, was inspired by Marius Petipa's Labadière. Of course, Horace being Horace, he'd put his own whimsical spin on things, adding extra acts and taking artistic license where he deemed necessary. The levitation trick that Alexander and Pari would be performing was the penultimate act of the night. In Horace's reworking of the classic story, Pari played Nakia, a temple dancer who pledged her eternal love for the warrior Solar, played by Alexander. Lena bit her lip as the lights dimmed. She hadn't seen Alexander or Pari anywhere, and wondered what they were up to. But her mind was soon focused on what was happening on stage. Horace never failed to impress her with his ingenuity. He dreamed up celestial delights in the forms of magical sets drenched in a fabric of seafoam green, arctic blue, and silver gray. Horizontal platforms floated effortlessly in the choreographed fashion, laddering up to the theater's ceilings. Along the way, aerialists clad in pearl-studded ecru leotards twirled around thick drapes of frosted-colored silk, descending in a dazzling manner. Watching a World of Wonders performance did truly take her breath away. When the water ballerinas came off stage and toweled off around her, Lena slipped out quickly to use the washroom. When she returned, she was startled to see Pari and Alexander were standing backstage where she'd been all night. Her heart plummeted as she took in Pari's gold headpiece, thickly braided hair that fell to her waist, pale blue silk jalpers, and golden-colored bra made out entirely of topaz and agate. "Lena, I'm so pleased you could make it," Pari said brightly, leaning in to hug her. Lena noticed that her hands were covered in henna, a labyrinth of curlicues and swirls that snaked all the way up to her elbows. She was wearing a lot of makeup, and her eyebrows were shaped into 2 elegant arches over her aquamarine eyes. Lena thought that she looked like a sparkling magical creature, but said nothing for fear that Alexander might feel the same. "Thanks for coming," Alexander said, hugging Lena, his eyes rimmed with excitement and kohl. She wanted to respond, but her voice was firmly lodged in her throat, and she took in his uniform. Martha had dressed him in a midnight blue sherwani, gold drawstring pants, and shoes that curled up in a satisfying point at the toes, and a turban that matched the color of Pari's headpiece. Lena glanced at her program. The next act was the one where Pari was poisoned by a jealous maiden named Gamzati, and that was brought back to life by Alexander. "That's our cue," Alexander whispered loudly. He gripped Pari's hand, led her on stage. And as the crowd clapped, Lena tried to focus on the act, but she felt sick each time she saw Alexander place a hand on Pari's back, or her stomach, or her small feet that were graced within thin gold anklets. When the illusion was over, Alexander wrapped Pari's tiny body in a hug, clinging to her far too long for Lena's liking, before they joined hands and then took their bow. Over the applause, Lena could hear Pari's laugh, light and carefree. Lena knew Pari had struggled and that she had lost her mother too, but this shared commonality had never bonded them. She wondered if Pari and Alexander were a couple and thought for a moment about what offspring that would produce. The combination of Pari's Middle Eastern beauty mixed with the blonde-haired, blue-eyed Alexander, Horace would have a field day. But she noted with guilty relief that Pari's stomach was as flat as ever and her arms were toned and muscular. Pari had the strength of an athlete combined with the daintiness of a fairy. She was, in Lena's eyes, perfect. "What did you think?" Lena snapped out of her daydream. Alexander was standing in front of her. She blinked, stalling for a time, and failed to notice the hope in his voice. Instead, she saw the way that Alexander clutched at Pari's delicate hand. The henna made it look like Pari had captured him, entwined herself with him, and that he was hers forever. "She doesn't live." Alexander's face flickered with a new emotion. Next to him, Pari's glow faded. She cleared her throat and adjusted her headpiece. "What do you mean?" Alexander frowned. Lena shook her head. "I mean, that's just not how the real story ends. Nikia doesn't live. Gamzati kills her." She spun on her heels and walked away as fast as her braces would carry her. Lena skipped the rest of the show, preferring to hide in the mirage maze. Tucked away behind the mirrored panels, she looked down at her body and cried. It wasn't fair. No matter how much physical therapy she did, she would never be able to do the turns and jumps that Pari managed so effortlessly, like she was spun from silver thread and air. Back in his carriage, Alexander was fuming. He was furious with Lena for taking a moment that was meant to be wonderful and turning it into another bad memory. But after he changed out of his costume and settled into bed, he sighed. Most of the anger was directed at himself. He'd been so shocked at seeing Lena's transformation and still hadn't figured out a way to properly articulate what he'd felt. Time apart had only made his feelings for her stronger and added to his confusion. "Fool, Alexander, letting a girl control your emotions." He groaned, thinking about the evening's events, and squeezed his eyes closed, trying to shut out his father. He hadn't believed Pari when she told him that Lena was jealous. "Just tell her I'm with Alexei," Pari urged him, referring to the Russian strong man she was dating. "I promise things will get better for you if you do." He replayed the interactions he'd had with Lena in the past few days in his head, analyzing them over and over again on an infinite and exhausting loop. There was once something that she had done, something she had said, where she'd alluded to feeling the same way. But it was no use. Where matters of the heart were concerned, his ability to read Lena was useless. Frustrated, he thumped his pillow once more and rolled over and tried to sleep. Aw, poor kids. It's rough. It's rough when you don't know what you don't know. Let's see. Chapter 18. By January, Horace was drowning in debt. His labadière wasn't bringing in the money that he needed, and the number of upcoming cities on the tour had been cut in half. On an early February evening, they crossed the border from Czechoslovakia to Hungary, used to providing the SS with the usual bits of sustenance and then sending them on their way. Horace was surprised when one of the high-ranking officials returned the next morning. Fearing that he'd been found out, he put on his best facade. Good evening, officer. The officer saluted him in response. He stood over 6 feet tall and was solidly built, the bandages on his gray-green uniform a stark reminder of who Horace was dealing with. He stared at the circus director with his piercing green eyes. I know you, Horace began, trying to place him. From the Norway checkpoint, the officer answered in accented but clear English. I've been following your circus with much interest, Mr. Beddington. Is there somewhere that we could chat? Oh, I'm so glad, Missy. That's why we started putting them up on YouTube for situations like the power outage and whatever like that. The evening before she was to write her entrance examination, Lena sat with Clara in the comfort of the library. Bye, Liz. See you later. Outside, a storm covered the carriages in windy blankets of ice and snow as they sped through the war-torn continent. Lena sipped on hot cocoa Mario had made for her as she stared out the window, mentally going over everything she'd been studying for the past months. Nervous? Clara asked. Lena shook her head. She felt oddly at ease. Clara had run through so many practice examinations, going as far as to mimic the actual examination scenario in the library from 9 a.m. to noon, no breaks. And she didn't feel like anything would be different tomorrow. There was a knock at the door. Who is it? Clara asked, rising from her chair, holding her long skirt up slightly so that she wouldn't trip. It's Alexander. Is Lena in there? Clara glanced at Lena and then unlocked the door. As Alexander slipped in, Lena did her best to stop her face from turning red. He made small talk with Clara for a few moments and then walked over to Lena. She crossed her arms and blushed. I wanted to wish you good luck tomorrow. You remembered, Lena said, lowering her arms slightly. Alexander shrugged, a hint of his boyishness coming through. Of course I did. He stuffed his hands into his pockets and began swaying from side to side. Well, thanks, she replied, wishing she could leap up and hug him and everything strange between them would disappear. Okay, I guess I'll go. Alexander started to turn, but he didn't move. What's the matter, Becca? What's wrong? Just the snow? He closed his eyes for a second and took a deep breath. Lena, he said, looking directly at her, no matter what happens, what you've done to get here is amazing. I just thought you should know that. He turned around before Lena could respond, mumbling something to Clara about the show, and then left. I only did it because you made me think it was possible, Lena wanted to say. She wished she could pull his arms around her and feel the warmth of his body next to hers, but that was never going to happen. She frowned, remembering the way that he looked at Pari. I haven't seen you two together much, Clara observed. Oh, we've both been so busy, Lena said, gesturing to her books on the side table. As long as that's the only reason. For a minute, Lena thought about telling Clara everything, the way her feelings for Alexander had shifted, the pain that she felt when she was looking at him with other girls, and the tiny sliver of hope that maybe one day he'd feel the same way that she did. Hard to get off the car, struggles to get out of the driveway, morning fight with Max. Ugh. Yeah, not cute. Snow is not cute. Is there something that you want to talk about? Lena shook her head, refocusing her thoughts on the examination. So after I write the test, you won't know the results for a few months? Clara regarded her intently for a moment and then said, That's right. We'll get the results in late spring or early summer. And Lena, she said reassuringly, don't worry, you're ready. Lena smiled back at Clara. With all the tumult and uncertainty around her, she could be confident about one thing. She'd done the work, and she knew she was prepared for whatever was going to happen in the morning. Back in the safety of his own room, Alexander crouched on the ground and leveled up the loose floorboard. For a moment, he just stared at the collection he'd amassed over the past 3 years. I'm telling you, he wouldn't survive a day in the wild alone. Alexander felt his jaw stiffen. It wasn't nearly as impressive as any of the hauls that his father had done in his heyday, but it was still an accomplishment. He reached down into the hollow cavity and removed a gold medallion featuring the Habsburg Empress Maria Theresa. He'd stolen it in Vienna, sliding it out from under the glass case and slipping it into his pocket with ease. Next, he picked up a piece of fabric and carefully spread it out on the floor. This was one of 3 items he'd taken from Victoria and Albert in Southeast Asia collection. It was a wall hanging crafted from the finest silks and satins, all varying shades of pink, cream, and gold. It was hand-woven by a group of artisans in Gujarat, he recalled the museum curator boasting as he led the troupe on their private tour 2 years back. Once they'd finished weaving it, the prince, who'd commissioned it, cut off their hands because he never wanted anyone else to make anything as beautiful. One by one, Alexander took out various objects that he'd acquired, laying everything out neatly on the floor. When he'd finished, he frowned. "A weak, useless boy. Being sensitive will get you nowhere, Alexander." He clamped his hands over his ears, trying to quiet his father's voice. Lena had taught him that people could change. He pushed her through her own doubts and was on the cusp of her biggest achievement yet. Alexander leaned his head against his bed, staring at the dresser drawer above that held his wages. Never in his life had he expected to make an honest living, not after everything his father had taught him. He cursed him now for what he made him do, what he'd turned him into. His eyes flooded with tears, and he thought about his mother. "You cannot outrun who you really are." His father's last words to him rang through his ears. "No, Papa," he said, steeling himself. "You are wrong. People can change, and I will show you." It's morning in the United States. Yes, it is. Reaching up to his bedside table, he grabbed a pen and notebook and ripped out a sheet of paper. He began writing down the name of each of the items that surrounded him, following the place he'd picked them up. At some point over the next year, the tour would hit every city where he'd stolen something from a museum, gallery, library, or vault, and he would use those visits to make sure everything was right and expunge himself of his sins. He couldn't take back what he'd done, but he knew how he could change and who he was meant to be. In March, the company traveled to Monaco to perform at a private show for the House of Grimaldi. Though they were not the most enticing audiences, private shows provided a stable stream of income and an outlet for the performers to keep their skills sharp. Afterwards, Theo bowed out of the troupe party, telling others that he was heading to the casino to try his luck at baccarat. On the way, he told the driver to make a detour. He looked outside the window at the grandiose millionaire's playground that had come under occupation by the Germans. As they drove by the coast, boats dotting the sparkling blue water, Theo sighed wearily, wondering if this was the last jewel left in Europe. He was tired of fighting. Countries were disintegrating, defeated from the blows of the Axis powers repeatedly doling out. As the car pulled up outside the American embassy, he decided that the future was not in Europe and that the best thing he could do for his daughter and Alexander was to get the 3 of them out. Interesting. So is he going to try to take the 3 of them and leave for America? I don't know. Oh, it's not a gift. The video app is just a means for anyone who misses things to get to them. You know what I mean? All right, let's do, I think, sorry. One of my friends just completed a workout, and since our watches are connected, I like to give like little words of encouragement when I get the alerts from my friends that they've like done something. I don't know, whatever. I'm weird. Okay. Chapter 19. My butt's fallen asleep. A few weeks before her 13th birthday, oh, there's our answer. We were wondering yesterday how old Lena is. So she's 12 and she's turning 13. Now we know. A few weeks before her 13th birthday, Lena noticed a rust-colored stain on her underwear, her stomach plummeting at the sight of it. She wondered if anyone could tell, wondered if the world would know that something fundamental about her had changed. She was a woman now. Feeling awkward about asking her father for help, she said nothing to him. But on the third day, Clara noticed a balled-up mass of linen handkerchief soaked in red slip out of Lena's skirt while she was heading back to the carriage. "What's that?" Lena saw the blood-soaked handkerchief on the floor and then looked at Clara, who, judging from her facial expression, had quickly pieced together what was going on. Exhausted from the exam, her confusion about Alexander, and now this, Lena burst into tears. "Oh, you got to find her and tell us, Missy. She was 9 when they met. You listed all the med stuff that she knew at 9. Right. In the safety of Clara's room, Lena told her what had happened between sobs. Clara hugged her and told her that everything was going to be okay, but she added that it was important that they tell Lena's father so that he could get her the supplies that she needed. Lena nodded reluctantly and then asked her governess if she could tell him for her. Lena didn't know how to speak to her biggest hero about this. Clara agreed and told her to wait in the room. About 20 agonizing minutes later, there was a soft knock, and then Clara opened the door and Lena saw Theo standing behind her, his face tense with worry. Clara whispered something to him, and he nodded, walking into the carriage and closing the door. Lena wrung her hands and spoke quietly. "Papa, I'm sorry that I didn't tell you." And then it happened all at once. Theo rushed over to her, taking her in his arms. She began to cry again, all the months of pent-up frustration flooding out. "You have nothing to be sorry about." He held her, letting her cry until she'd gotten it all out. "I'm the one who should apologize. You were growing up right before my eyes, and I..." He looked away, upset. He couldn't tell her the truth yet. Feeling guilty, he hugged her tightly. He'd been so preoccupied with his own planning that he'd been barely present as a father. Lena sniffed and told him that it was okay, but Theo shook his head. "You're everything to me, Lena. Nothing will change that." His eyes filled with concern. "You must tell me when things like this happen. Clara has already offered to help you get what you need, but I also need to know, and I want to know," he added. Lena nodded and smiled, feeling like a weight had been lifted off of her. Theo pinched her cheeks. "Now I believe someone has a 13th birthday approaching. It's a big one," he said, his eyes beginning to twinkle. "I was going to wait until the actual day, but I think now's the right time." He reached into his pocket and took out a blue and gold leather keychain and a brass key dangling from the middle. Lena stared at the key, not daring to take it. "Is this..." Theo nodded, breaking into a laugh. "I think it's time you had your own carriage." Lena threw her arm around her father's waist, hugging him tightly. "Thank you, Papa." She pulled back and took the key from him, turning it over in his hands. "Can we decorate?" "Any way you like," Theo said. "But first, we have to get your party sorted out." "I'm too old for parties." Theo let out a booming laugh. "No one's ever too old for parties. What do you say we do a dinner with the whole company?" Lena's gaze wavered. She wasn't sure how she was going to ask Alexander, but the idea of celebrating with everyone was a welcome change to the strife that had clouded the world. "Okay," she agreed. 2 days later, Lena spotted Alexander in the games parlor and began fretting over her party again. She hovered near him, trying to remember how she used to speak to him. Alexander lifted up the mahjong box. Someone had failed to secure the clasp, and the case sprang open, a mountain of ceramic tiles cascading all over the floor. The sudden noise was such a surprise that Lena burst into giggles. Alexander whisked his head around and saw her in stitches. She halted for a brief moment, covering her mouth, but their eyes locked, and they both laughed so hard that they were almost in tears. Lena stooped down and began helping him pick up the pieces. As they plunked the tiles back into the box, the quiet between them began to grow. Lena began to fret over what she was going to say. She racked her brain for the perfect phrase to break the ice, but before she could get into it, Alexander cleared his throat. I heard you're having a birthday party?" "I am," Lena said, smiling. "I heard you're coming." Alexander broke into a grin. Lena's party took place on a Monday night when they were stationed in Seville. Spain had remained neutral during the war, and Horace had made the decision to stay in the country for at least 2 months, citing it as one of the last remaining safe spots to generate income. Theo asked the performers to gather in the front dining carriage, whereupon they would walk to a nearby restaurant that he had rented for the night. Mario had gone ahead and, with the help of 2 chefs, taken it upon himself to create a menu full of Lena's favorite foods. From Thessaloniki, in addition to the typical tapas offered in the native city. Lena hurried to finish dressing in her carriage. She sucked in her stomach and tugged at the pale blue dress that her father had given her as it fell down over her hips. I asked Martha to design it, he explained, his eyes shining, pointing out little details like the silvery thread that formed a thin band around the hem. A tiny strand of crystals circled the neckline, and the dress fell just above Lena's knees. It was the first grown-up thing she'd ever owned. She smoothed the dress over her hips, checking the inside seam and noticing with relief that Martha had designed it so that her braces could be worn comfortably underneath it without disrupting the fall of the dress. Satisfied with her outfit, Lena picked up a brush and began raking it through her hair, trying to untangle the knotted ends. With a glittery clip in one hand, she gathered up a section of strands, but when she tried to close the clasp, it sprung back uncooperatively. Lena tried again, but popped out and sailed to the floor. Exasperated, she shoved the clip into a drawer and began scraping her hair back into a ponytail. "Leave it down." Alexander was standing in the doorway of her carriage, clutching a huge box. He was wearing a navy blue shirt and gray trousers, his hair slicked back with styling cream. "It looks nice." Without losing his gaze, Lena let her hair fall across her back. "Thanks," she said, checking her watch. "We should go." "Wait." Alexander's eyes shifted to the box. Lena thought he looked nervous. Briefly, she allowed herself to wonder if his nerves were the result of his feelings for her, but she quickly banished that thought from her mind. Alexander was 15, practically a grown man. What could he possibly see in her? "Happy birthday." He placed the box on her bed. "I didn't know what you wanted," he continued, "but I thought you might like this." "Thanks," she said. "Have a good day, Haley." He'd never given her a gift. "Should I open it now?" He shrugged, failing to hide the fact that he was dying to see her reaction. No one was calling for her yet, so she sat down on her bed and motioned to Alexander to join her. The box was wrapped in brown paper and tied together by uneven lengths of string. "Sorry," Alexander muttered when he noticed her studying the package. "It's okay," Lena said, touched that he had made the effort to wrap it in the first place. Her fingers trembled as she unwrapped the box and looked inside. What she saw made her jaw drop. It was a miniature ore from the looks of it, a very ancient one. She lifted it carefully out of the box and placed it on her bed, marveling at its beauty. And then she looked back in the box and saw a series of smaller packets wrapped in newsprint. She slowly unwrapped each one to reveal the sun, the moon, and the 9 planets, all crafted from semi-precious stones. The ore's framework was formed from solid brass, and a ring engraved with the zodiac divided the upper and lower sections. She sat staring at the contraption in front of her, running her fingers around the rim of its circumference. Then she picked up the citrine Jupiter and agate Mars and malachite Earth, holding each one in the palm of her hand and looking at it more closely. "There's one more thing," Alexander said. Lena peered into the box. Right at the bottom was a tiny drawstring bag, no bigger than a deck of cards. If Alexander hadn't mentioned it, she might have missed it. She tugged at the strings and tipped it upside down. "Oh!" she exclaimed, a delicate bracelet falling into her palm. It was made of fine silver, and it had a tiny dove-shaped moonstone at its center. "I found it in Milan," Alexander explained. "The dove reminds me of the constellation Alpha Columbi. Do you know it?" No. I don't think anyone ever told me about that one." "It's below Orion, but it's very faint. If you weren't looking for it, you'd miss it." You'd have to be a very keen stargazer to know that it's there, but once you see it, it's incredible. Do you like it? It's beautiful, Lena replied. I love it. The entire solar system in your room, Alexander said, beaming at her. He paused and then inched closer to her. Lena, he whispered. He took her right hand in his left, and Lena could feel her heart beating so fast that she didn't know what to do. She tried to speak, but no words came out. She waited for him to say something, but all that came was a kiss. His lips slightly chapped on her right cheek, and then a moment, and then a turn to her, and then a turn of her chin to face him. How long had she wished for this moment? How many times had she played this scene out in her head? She closed her eyes and thought back to the time she overheard a young troop member explaining to another that you had to keep your eyes closed if a boy was about to kiss you and if you wanted to do it right. A moment passed, and then ever so slightly, she felt Alexander's lips brush against hers, and he held her cheek gently. It was over within 5 seconds, but every fiber of her being felt like it was on fire. She pulled away, opening her eyes. The expression on Alexander's face, that same mixture of embarrassment and excitement, was running through him as well. Lena smiled, unable to hide her happiness. He liked her. If she wanted proof, here it was. At that moment, she felt like she could do anything. Lena! Theo's voice cut through the moment, and both Alexander and Lena jumped. Don't tell anyone, she whispered loudly, her face darting back and forth between the door and Alexander. He smiled and took her left hand in his, kissing it softly. I won't. Lena checked her appearance one last time, and then hurriedly did up her braces as she smiled at Alexander. They exited the room, and he placed a hand on her right shoulder, a gesture that made her stomach flop. Lena, you look beautiful, Theo said when he saw her. He glanced at Alexander, and Lena felt a sudden shot of embarrassment. Did he know? Could he tell that she'd been kissed? Lena didn't have time to think about it because Theo pulled her forward. Come, he said, directing her down the hallway to exit. We don't want to keep everyone waiting. The restaurant, El Rinconcillo, had been around since 1670 and was a favorite stop for the troop members each time they were in Seville. Lena could smell the tronquets hissing before she'd even entered the restaurant. The thought of the sizzling cheese oozing out of the crisp exterior made her mouth water. Lena, happy birthday! Anna Maria and a few others had arrived ahead of them. Yusi popped the tronquet something. I don't know how to say that word. Sorry, guys. Tronquet in Lena's mouth before she'd taken off her coat, and then she savored the salty taste of the fried pastry, grabbing at the stringy strands of cheese. As the rest of the company clambered into space, the Riojas and Cava began to flow. Lena sat at the head of the table, surrounded by the people that she loved, and beamed at the plates of Gordal olives and tortilla bites that were placed before her. After the appetizers, the games started. Lena didn't know if it was because everyone pointedly avoided speaking of the war, or if everyone genuinely was happy to have something else to think about, but she couldn't remember a more fun birthday party. Neka began a game of charades, and Lena's stomach ached from the laughter as she watched Johannes pretending to be a giraffe. Theo and Alexander paired up to perform a few tricks, culminating in Theo pulling a tiny jewelry box out from behind Lena's ear. Open it, he said. Inside, Lena found a tiny strand of pearls held together by a silver clasp in a bed of velvet. It was your mother's. I was saving it for your 13th birthday, Theo said, fastening the necklace around her throat. Happy birthday, my darling girl. He kissed her on the cheek, and here's to many more. After the games, the main courses arrived, for which the chefs had gone completely Greek. The troupe feasted on platefuls of Slovaki and the fluffiest rice that Lena had tasted in ages, and tore through flatbread seasoned with spices and oil. The adults drank glass after glass of ouzo, growing looser and louder by the minute. Around 11, one of the orchestra members brought out a Spanish guitar, and he played late into the night, accompanied by Neka's singing and the stamping of feet from the band of revelers. For dessert, Mario had made a passion fruit lime cake and piped the number 13 across the top in mascarpone and vanilla bean icing. There were fresh lumades, Lena's favorite Greek treat from Thessaloniki, and everyone sang happy birthday as Lena prepared to make a wish. As she blew out her candles, she caught Alexander's eye and grinned. She'd never felt so absurdly content. Sweet. What a sweet chapter. Oh. It does sound tasty. All of it sounded tasty. Yum, yum, yum. I know, this book is amazing. What a good book. What a good book. All right. It's the last day before restock, so I obviously have a lot to do, so I got to get going and get the work done. But I know we're entering the teenage years. Max on the way to school. I don't understand. Why do my friends like snow? Boy. This is a great question for the ages. This is a question for the ages. It was so endearing, right? A question for the ages, my dear boy. None of us may ever know the answer. Listen, snow is fun when it's a day off and you're just playing in it and you're a kid and you don't have to shovel it and all you have to do is make snowmen and toss little things into their faces and things like that. But not when you got to go to school. Man, delivered gauntlet yesterday, excited to start reading. Ooh, nice. Wait, up. Sorry, I didn't mean to do that. Someone said, oh, no problem, Jane. No problem at all. I sent a friend request where I can talk more without character limits. Perfect, no problem. Oh, no, you're not talking to me. You're talking to her. No worries. But I also hate being cold, so I feel him on that front. We're pretty much like dead halfway through the book, so we probably have another week of this book, and then we'll start John's book. So anyone who wants to support him and grab a copy of that, obviously he self-publishes his books, so they, it's different than buying it's a great book. We're bowling through it. Slime and Crime is tonight if anyone feels like joining. I actually don't know what case Ellen's doing. She hasn't even told me, but it will be at 6:30 my time, 9:30 Eastern time per Ellen's request. You got this, Sasha. I will email you if I am without power. Email me before, Missy. Email me like at least a few hours before. Yeah, please, if you're without power. So yeah. And I will see you all later. Bye, guys.